I'm Kate Wall. I'm a consulting gardener based in South East Queensland. Hopefully you've seen me around at some of the garden expos. What I really am passionate about is helping you get the most out of your garden growing in our climate conditions here in South East Queensland. Today I'm working with Ipswich City Council to do a little video for you about how to start up a veggie patch. A lot of people have been wanting to grow veggies, particularly during this time of lockdown, but not everybody knows how to get started. So that's where I'm going to come in today and give you a helping hand. One of the first things that I want you to think about with a vegetable garden is where to put your vegetable garden. You need a site that's easy to access. If you can't get to it easily, you won't tend to it and the veggie garden won't work. It is really important. Vegetables need lots of attention. They don't need lots of attention in big blocks. It might be just a quick water or go down and pick off a few grasshoppers. But it does need you to be able to see it and go and visit it regularly. So make sure you choose a site that's easy to access. Veggies also need sun, and they need a fair bit of sun, but they don't need full sun. Full sun is a definition that is a very European definition. It means 6 hours a day. We can do that by lunchtime here in summer, but it's winter now, so we will look for a spot that's got plenty of sun. And we found a little spot here. This used to be where there was a shed. The shed has been knocked down and instead we've put in a garden bed. It's just outside the kitchen so we can see it from the window. We can easily come down the stairs and access this garden. There's a tap nearby so it's easy to water it. So we'll have no trouble caring for vegetables in this spot. It also has plenty of sun on this half of the garden, so today this is where we're going to plant. Come summer, the back of the garden will get plenty of sun as well, and we'll extend the garden there then. And we'll also look at putting in something that gives a bit of shade for summer afternoon sun, because that's too harsh for a lot of vegetables. But before we start planting, even though we've got some decent soil here, it's not good enough to grow vegetables. Vegetables do like good, healthy soil. They are heavy feeders and they need a fair bit of water. However, we don't want to just fill our bed with high nitrogen products, because high nitrogen, too much nitrogen for vegetables, will cause them to grow quickly and the pests will come in and eat them. We don't want them to grow too quickly. We want good flavour. We don't want them to be bolting to seed. So to improve this soil, and we're doing this whole project on a budget of $100. So really important that this is not going to be an overly expensive project for you, and you can have great success in the garden. We're going to improve the soil first. I'm going to add some compost. We haven't got compost ready to go, so I've had to buy a bag of compost, but I'm going to dig that through the garden, and then I'm also going to add some rock minerals, because most of our soils are quite deficient in minerals. In our vegetables, we need a good diversity of minerals to enhance the flavours and make our plant nice and strong. So by adding those minerals, we know that we're growing super healthy, tasty vegetables, and that's what we want to achieve here today. So I'm going to dig this through the soil just lightly before we get started with planting, and then I'll know that we've got great soil. If you can't dig your soil easily, it's not ready to grow things in. So it is very important with vegetables. We're going to be planting in things with tiny, delicate root systems. They need a nice, soft soil to go in. So it has to be easy to dig. This has been dug over and it's nice and fresh. If your soil is hard, you do need to soften it up, put some compost in, and get it ready for those vegetables. Now, in this particular garden, we've also put a compost bin here. There's a good reason for that, and that is to make the whole process of composting something that's very visible and we think about doing. But every time we plant new vegetables, we're going to need to add more compost to the soil. By having the bin here, it reminds us that we need to add compost when we change over our crops, and we can empty that and dig it straight in, which is a great reason for having the compost bin in the veggie garden where it's close at hand when we need the compost. Now let's get to with fixing up this soil. And that's starting with putting the bag of compost through. Now, as you can see, this is rich and black. Good compost should be a really dark colour, and you shouldn't be able to see the bits and pieces of what went into it. I'm also going to add some minerals now, and this I can just shake in and give it a light fork through now. By mixing this all together, we've got a nice even soft soil. I can also even out the bumps so that it's nice and smooth and ready for planting into. Now you can see from this that my soil needs to be soft and easy to dig. If this wasn't easy, we wouldn't be able to grow vegetables into it. So do make sure, if your soil is too hard, you may need to put some compost and leave it for a couple of weeks so the compost can really work its way into the soil. And hopefully, in not too long, we'll have worms in here as well. But that will all happen once we get it all planting. This particular mix of rock minerals that I'm using has microbes in it, which helps attract worms, but it also helps keep our soil nice and healthy. So you can see where I've dug it over that it's not showing too much of any one thing. The black of the compost is nicely turned through, and it will mean that even if I didn't have a trowel to dig little holes for our seedlings, I could just use my fingers to poke them in nice and easily. We've made a trellis here out of a piece of old Rio. This is something we've recycled, so we didn't have to purchase this, and we'll be able to grow our snow peas on this trellis. The next job is to get all the veggies that we've brought along and plant them in. This is the selection that we're going to be planting here today. The reason that we've chosen some of these things is quite significant. One is the time of year. It's winter at the moment, so we want to grow things that are suited to Ipswich in winter. And a lot of that is your leafy greens. So we have a good selection of leafy greens. We've got rocket, coriander here and parsley over here. We've got a mixture of different lettuces. These are cut and come again lettuce, which means you pick the leaves as you need them. You don't wait for it to form a heart. So that can be fun in the garden. Another bit of fun that we're going to have here is with this rainbow mix of silver beet. So this is silver beet, but as you can see, there's a bit of colour in there, which just makes the garden a little bit prettier and your salad a little bit prettier as well. The young leaves are good in salads. The older leaves, of course, we cook. We've also got some Asian greens, because the best time of year for Asian greens, again, leafy greens, it's a good time of year. This one here is a pak choi that has a red tinge to the leaf. Again, just to add a bit of interest, but as we're all learning, a bit of colour in the diet is a good thing. So mixing up our leaf colours a little bit can be really beneficial. We also have some snow peas. With snow peas, they're perfect this time of year, but remember the young tips are lovely in salad as well. You don't have to just wait to get the pea pods. We've got some spring onions. We've got some tomatoes. Come summer, we can't grow tomatoes. It's too hot and we have too much trouble with fruit fly, but at this time of year, they're absolutely perfect. The other thing that we're really looking at putting in here is herbs. It's a great time of year for herbs, but we're also focusing on the things that we want fresh each day and maybe a little bit regularly instead of buying something like a bag of carrots that can sit in the fridge. You've got the Lockyer Valley close by with amazing farms and amazing produce. We don't need to try and compete with that. We want to grow a selection of things that you can pop outside and quickly pick and add fresh to dinner. So that's what this selection's about. Amongst our herbs, we've got the coriander and the parsley, because this is the perfect time of year for those. We've got rosemary, because this will form a lovely shrub that stays in the garden for many, many years. And it's great to have a sprig of rosemary on hand as you need it. Not the sort of thing that you rush out and buy, but it's lovely to have it in the garden, so you will use it a lot more. We've also got stevia, which is another wonderful herb for adding sweetness to meals. And we've got pineapple sage. Pineapple sage has edible red flowers, so it's flowers that we can add to the salad. but of course it's also very good for beneficial insects. There are certain things that we're growing from seed because they're better from seed, and that is anything that's a root vegetable. Radish is very quick and easy and a really good one for beginners. Because we want to just play with being a little bit more advanced, we've got some beetroot seeds to put in. But, you know, we don't necessarily need a huge crop of beetroot. We also have some alyssum seeds. Now this people grow as a flower, but it's perfect in the veggie garden because it brings in the beneficial insects. It brings in the bees and the beneficial insects, which will help everything else grow better. But what a lot of people don't realise is that alyssum is a type of brassica, and those flowers are edible. They taste a bit like cabbage with honey on. Absolutely lovely to put in your salads. So it has twice the benefit, being edible and being able to bring in the bugs. Now, we've also got a couple of cutting pieces here. These are things that you won't find at most nurseries, but I encourage you to look out for and swap with friends. These are subtropical vegetables, things that work particularly well in our climate that aren't going to die off come summer. They're going to last quite a few years. This one's just a stick at the moment, but that's about to shoot off. That's called ibeca. It's a type of edible hibiscus. We've also got here, this one is called Okinawa spinach, and as you can see it has purple on the back of the leaf, so again we're bringing a bit of colour into our diet. This one will be a perennial form of spinach. And these cuttings here are from Suriname spinach, another type of perennial spinach substitute. So these are things I encourage you to look out for at garden expos and things like that, or if you know someone growing it, ask for a cutting. This gives us a lovely mix of things that are perfect for this time of year. Now, let's get planting. And so I've got stakes for the tomatoes ready. The rosemary wants the most amount of sun, so it's there. The pineapple sage can take a bit more shade, so it's over here, as can the stevia. Okay, we buy our seedlings in these little punnet cells, and they've got very delicate roots, so if you start pulling like this, you will destroy the plant. Here's the trick. Turn it upside down and press the bottom like that. Push it down and squeeze it back up. Like that. Those ones now will shake out quite easily and intact. Now that I'm planting this parsley, I'm going to spread the plants out around the bed and not put them all in one place. That way, if the possums come along and decide they want a meal of parsley, they don't find every single one in one night. Okay, all of our seedlings are now planted. We've mixed everything up, and the reason for that is if something comes in to eat their favourite food amongst all of this, they don't find everything in one go. If they eat the parsley on this side, we've got parsley over here that we still have some for us. Okay, what I'm doing now is planting some of the seeds. starting with beetroot, which is quite a large seed. The beetroot we don't want to disturb, so I'm putting it here in the middle. I've raked this patch nice and smooth. We don't want seeds in the lumpy spots. We want them in these nice smooth patches here. So this is where I'm putting in the beetroot. Now with this beetroot, I'm just going to press them in lightly with my finger so that they're not on top of the soil, but they're not too deep. If we bury seeds too deep, they won't be able to grow. So we need to keep them quite close to the surface. We also have some radish seeds, and hopefully these ones will come up very quickly and we'll be harvesting them very quickly. Radish is not the sort of thing that a lot of people like to eat a lot of. We tend to just eat a little bit of radish, and often home gardeners grow more radish than they can eat. That's not a problem. Let some of them go to seed, because radish is a brassica and the seeds are very, very good for bringing in the bees. These seeds will move down into the soil better as we water them in. The third type of seed that I'm going to plant is the sweet alyssum. This one here, like I said, is a flower. It's a nice small plant, but it's also a very tiny seed. So it's very, very difficult to place individual seeds, but we tend not to need to. We can just sprinkle this right through the garden, because out of this seed packet we will, even though there's hundreds of seeds, we will end up with a lovely handful of plants which will make the garden pretty and help bring in the beneficial insects. Now that that's all done, we need to water it all in. If we didn't water this now, it would all wilt and die. They're all baby plants, they're all quite delicate. I'm actually going to water it in using a little bit of sea salt. There are other products as well that are made with the seaweed. The reason we're using the seaweed is it's a very good tonic for reducing transplant shock. It's also extremely good for stimulating root growth on plants. And all of these, being babies, really need their roots supported. Strong, healthy roots is going to give us strong, healthy plants. So really important that we give them a bit of a boost. You don't need to use sea salt all the time, but when you've just planted and you're watering things in is a great time. And I'm going to give this garden a bit of a flood with this mix, and that way I know that all of the seeds are also nicely watered in. All of the compost that we've mixed in at the beginning is nicely watered in, and the ground is nice and damp. We need that good dampness so it doesn't dry out too quickly. Before I go and get some more water, I'll just let you know how we're going to finish this. Because we've planted seeds in here, we're not going to mulch it just yet. We're going to give it this really good watering. Hopefully within 2 weeks, all of those seeds have started to grow. The weather's nice and warm, it's nice and sunny, it's perfect conditions. Once the seeds have come up, we are going to mulch it with sugarcane mulch. It's really important that we don't let our vegetable garden dry out. If it gets too dry, our veggies wilt and then they lose a lot of flavour, even if we get them to come back fairly quickly. When it comes time to put on the mulch, we don't want it too thick, because that will stop the water being able to get down to the vegetables. So I'm going to show you, just on this corner where we have no seeds, how we're going to do that. Just a nice thin scattering like this is plenty. But if I were to put that there now, we'd stop the seeds being able to come up. So we're going to wait 2 weeks before we do this, and we're going to keep it well watered so it doesn't dry out in that time. Tiny baby plants don't like to dry out. Okay, there you go. There's a vegetable garden created on a budget of $100. This is possible for absolutely anybody, so long as you've got a little piece of ground. You can see it's not a huge area, but you're going to get so much out of this little space, and it will work beyond just the first season. We're setting you up to be fantastic veggie growers, so you've always got something you can pick out of the garden. Your turn to go out and create a veggie garden. Have fun.